A few days after the lighting of the Deepam flame, Bhagavan's Jayanti took place on the 18th December, his holy birthday. A few days before Christmas, the Maharaja of Amnagar state at Kathiatar came to the ashram. He invited Thelma and other devotees for afternoon tea. As she wrote, he brought with him 25 or 30 servants. Aside from stumbling over one another, I can't imagine what they could do for one single man. Europeans and Americans were invited to the Morvey guest house, which is otherwise reserved for royalty. We had a delightful time, of course. While we were all having a festive time, the Maharaja got the idea that we should all have Christmas dinner together. Nobody refused, and so we put on our best bib and tucker and went to the big dinner. There was a continual procession of servants passing before us to make sure we didn't run short of food. We had a large variety of dishes. Some of them were hot enough to start a forest fire, and others quite delicious. The day before Christmas, various devotee friends sent fruits and sweets to Wally and me. Though in the heart of spiritual India, Thelma and her friend from home, Mrs. Groger, made a small gesture at keeping the American Christmas tradition. She writes, we decided to get up at 5 a.m. Christmas morning and do a bit of baking. A truly Herculean task in a place where an oven is an oddity for museums rather than to be used in kitchens. To make our task more difficult, we had no recipes for cookies. Wally made some lovely pretzel-shaped cookies that were really works of art. When we peeked into our improvised oven, a frying pan with a lid, to our dismay, the pretzels had turned to flapjacks. What a mess. We tried other varieties of cookies with very little success. We tried to make some candy, which was also a fiasco. In short, we didn't draw one winner from all the things we made. We made up our little trays anyway and sent them to devotees who had been so nice to us. Reports came back that they were still good, but Wally and I knew better. We had a lot of laughs anyway, and nobody got a stomachache. Shortly after the first of the year, another Maharani came to the ashram and invited us to dinner. We always welcome such invitations in that we don't have to cook on those days. The elegant saris worn on such occasions are breathtaking. Some of them are several hundreds of years old and are worth fortunes. Mr. Rappold, that is Sam, Mrs. Groger, and I have combined efforts on cooking, which saves time and effort for everybody. Mrs. Groger brought a nice one-burner kerosene stove with her, and so we use that most of the time. And this way we can spend more time in the hall with Bhagavan, which of course is what we all want. Mrs. Groger had become equally enamored of Bhagavan and the hill, and the two made their best efforts at introductory renunciate life. As Thelma writes, Wally, that is, Mrs. Groger and I spent another night in a cave. Who knows, maybe in preparation for a future stay in the Himalayas. Anyway, it was very thrilling. That night there was just a crescent moon. On all these excursions, we have to get up on the hill before dark, as it is very dangerous climbing about after the sun goes down. The best thing to do is stay where one is until daybreak, if caught unaware. Anyway, in front of the cave were some nice big flat rocks, just as though they had been put there for a veranda. During the night, one of those tropical downpours awakened us, and we had to retreat inside the cave, which was only 2 feet high and hardly enough for two of us. I don't mind saying I felt a wee bit creepy, not knowing exactly when some unwelcome animal, insect, or snake might come crawling in wanting to share our small quarters. But no mishaps. It certainly was a novel experience, and I wouldn't have missed it for anything. Once a week now, usually on Wednesdays, I go into Munam, or silence. I shall try 24 hours in the beginning, which may be a challenge, not talking for that long, but it's rather fun. The big challenge is to keep the mind from running all around the country, but it does have a soothing effect on the system. It also helps with meditation in as much as it cuts out all the unnecessary chatter. Thelma sees Bhagavan's hand in everything around her. A very interesting phenomena occurs whenever it rains, Thelma writes. Many of the heavy downpours come in the late afternoons, but invariably at 7:30, when the men are scheduled to leave the hall, the rain stops, perhaps only for a few minutes, but long enough for the men to get home. Just a coincidence? Some will say. Perhaps. Followed Bhagavan to the woodshed in the rain. A devotee came to the ashram this morning wearing glowing raiment, such as I had never seen before. An unforgettable picture framed by the gateway of the little temple shrine. The radiance of the moment dazzled even the attendant who approached the open doorway. We caught a glimpse of the rainbow Madonna as we sat watching the mist-covered sun rise through the archway. On another day, all were sitting quietly at the feet of Bhagavan, listening to the raging wind and the roaring thunder, when suddenly lightning struck within 3 feet of where Thelma was sitting. She writes, all the women in that section seemed to jump in unison. And miracle of miracles, the lightning struck the ground right there, and not even a hair on anyone's head was harmed. Years ago, I was very much frightened of lightning. But strange as it may seem, the heart didn't even skip a beat that day. It must have been the presence of Bhagavan that protected everyone. Only by the grace of Bhagavan could such a calm reign in the midst of such fury. Thelma pauses from the outward adventure of life with Bhagavan to appreciate what is at work in her. And she writes, at the ashram, I found my true home and teacher. It is as if I had lived several lifetimes in this short time I have been with him. The person who came to him in the beginning is not the same person now. I began to understand how to open up the power locked within me. When I first met Sri Ramana, he told me, you are what you are. Accept it. When the time comes to give it up, do it with grace. I keep trying to open as much as possible. I recognize that we all choose our suffering because we do not open up and accept what life brings. We don't find out who it is that is experiencing the suffering. I have never in any previous time in my life really let go and tried to just be. When we can do this, love just pours out. Life in the presence of Bhagavan had ordinary moments too. Time with a friend on the hill, for example, provided needed intervals to take in and assimilate all that Thelma was undergoing internally during her darshans in the hall. She writes, a few nights ago, Wally, that is Mrs. Groger, and I went up on the hill to spend the night on some of the mammoth rocks. The original plan was to meditate all night rather than sleep. However, that seemed to be a wee bit too much for us at the time. The moon was so beautiful, there was a lovely breeze, and it was almost a pity to close the eyes. We told Bhagavan that we planned to do it as it is considered rather risky business normally on account of the many snakes and wild animals such as cheetahs, panthers, and scorpions. By Bhagavan's grace, all went well, and nothing more than the big ants bothered us. We hated to come down from the mountain the next morning, but all good deeds must come to an end. Thelma continued living in Dr. and Mrs. Syed's compound, and her life in the tropics regularly brought fresh encounters. She writes, at the moment, I am considering changing the name of Aspiration Abode to Aspiration Zoo. As mentioned before, Aspiration Abode is so tiny another person couldn't possibly stay with me. However, a tailless lizard and his family of lizards and all their relatives have moved in with me. Papa Lizard must have been minding somebody else's business because he got his tail bitten off. I notice, however, he is starting to grow another. In addition to the lizard family, I have Hoppy the frog, Mickey the mouse, Noisy the cricket, Skinny the silverfish, and a dozen other varieties of creatures whose names I don't know living with me. I almost forgot to name the flying roach who loves to eat and make his nest in any kind of paper. So far, I haven't found anything that will affect the roaches. They seem to grow fat on DDT. This morning, I even found a 2-foot snake just outside the door. Anyone interested in moving into my little zoo with me? But Thelma began to see herself as a veteran of the tropics when other uninitiated Western visitors came to South India for the first time. She writes, "A few days ago, 2 English women from South Africa arrived in Madras, Gertrude de Kock and Eureka Wessels. Mrs. de Kock is 56, but could easily pass for a woman in her early 40s. Eureka, I should say, is in her early 30s. De Kock is a New Thought teacher in South Africa and has had a very thrilling life which reads like a storybook. This was their first trip to India, and they had no idea what they were getting into. The primitive way of life, the hot food, and having to sit on the floor cross-legged, and to eat food with the fingers from a banana leaf was almost more than they could take at the time. Someone on the ship coming over told them that was what they would have to do, but they thought the man was kidding. They were used to all the modern luxuries of life. On the train coming from Madras, Sam told them that if the food at the ashram was too spicy, he would be glad to cook for them, provided they were satisfied with plain food he ate. They decided to take him up on his offer, and Sam, Mr. Rappold, told me about it and asked if I would help. The result was that I was cooking 2 meals a day for 4 people and serving the 4 of us when the weather didn't permit eating outside. How we managed in my tiny 5-foot by 10-foot abode is more than I know. The walls seemed to expand while they were here, and now that they have gone, the walls have assumed their normal proportions again. The women were here for 10 days. After the first day or two, they began to unbend considerably, and we had many good laughs over their experiences and the circumstances in which they found themselves.